Dr. Shank, we appreciate you taking some time with us this morning and the patrons. Cassia School District is embarking on something that we haven't investigated for many years, and that is a strategic planning process. Will you tell us what that entails and why you're bringing that to Cassia?
Very good, Debbie. Thank you. It's a great opportunity to get with our public again and talk about some great things that we've got going on. Strategic planning is a process, be it that you're a nonprofit or a business or a school district, an organization, institution, that you go through to determine why it is that you exist, why you do the things that you do, and then get in and investigate the present levels of performance, where it is that you're at, the types of goals that you would like to set, and how it is that you'll arrive at those goals. It's a process that provides for patrons, parents, community leaders, stakeholders to come in and be with us and ask some very specific questions about how it is that we're performing. In our process, we want to take a look at 4 questions that we, in our professional language, call professional learning communities. And those 4 questions are: what do we want our students to be able to know and do? A very, very basic type of question when it comes to education. The second is how will we know when they've learned it? And then third is, what will we do when they haven't learned it? And the final question with that is, what do we do when they already know it? And so when you think about teaching and learning and the processes that occur, we want to take a look at those very seriously and then answer those questions so that we know the roadmap of how it is that we'll improve our learning. The second half of that is there are 4 additional questions in our process that we're going to ask, and it basically has to do with organizational performance. Where are we in our performance in terms of an organization, individual institutions? Where is it that we want to be? Are we performing in a way that we think? And if we're not, what are we going to do about that? So we try to work it in that context. Strategic planning invites others in to participate, to give us different voices, to give us different critical looks at something that perhaps we might be wanting to do, and then things that they think that they would like us to do. So if you think of post-high school outcomes, students graduate, they leave our system. Are they prepared? Do they have choices in their life? Can they make those choices that they want? Because the education that they receive in the school district should help provide for that foundation. So that's kind of, I guess, in a quick nutshell, what strategic planning is about. The great thing about strategic planning is we want to invite people to participate. We're going to have our principals and our department leaders, transportation, food service, all of these people that provide services in our district, they're going to reach out to our stakeholders and ask them to come in and help provide feedback and input. And then when they've done that, they're going to produce a plan. Something that's actually written. It's a shared document. It's a shared position, if you will, that's going to comprise the entire district plan for Cassia County. So we have 18 schools, probably 10 or so specific departments. They're all going to come in and form that Cassia County School District strategic planning. Now I'll tell you, Debbie, I'm pretty excited about this because it gives us a roadmap of where it is that we're at, and then helps us design where it is that we want to go. No organization out there that I'm aware of that I've ever come across in my life is perfect. And there's always things that people need to improve upon. And we want to invite that type of critical look.
In your experience, you've clearly done this before. And as you said, you want to outline a map of where you'd like to see our school district in the next 5, 10 years. How far out do you see us going?
Well, and that's a great question, specific to the things that we're trying to do. So for instance, right now we're engaged in talking to our community about our facilities and the idea that we're going to need their help in supporting of a bond. So facilities are part of that and need to go inside of our strategic plan. So we're going to look at 5, 10, 15 years out, maybe even 20 when it comes to those facilities. Other things like academics, when we're looking at math improvement, literacy improvement, achievement, these sorts of things, those are a little bit shorter time windows because we want to see growth, we want to see achievement improve in a quick amount of time, say a year, 2, 3. So when you look at each specific objective, 3 to 5 years is probably something we're looking at, and then on other things could be even longer.
Last year, we were very transparent, or tried to be, and for those that don't know, you can go and find out how your school performed on the ISAT math and reading. Those things are on our school website. Parents are interested in how their children are doing academically and how effective teaching impacts that. How do you see this working on a per student level?
Well, everything that we do with this should inform, guide individual types of things that are happening per student. So for instance, if the overarching goal is improved literacy, we want everyone to be good readers, good writers, good speakers, all of these sorts of things. If our plans aren't specific enough to inform individual performance, then we haven't looked at it closely enough or critically enough. So it should look down into that type of environment. For instance, if you think of those 4 questions with the professional learning communities, those are specific, not broad. What is it that we do when a student hasn't learned it? What do we do when a student already knows it? Those are very specific questions.
Will you explain and describe a little bit more, perhaps in a little more detail, what these professional learning communities, what they look like, who's a part of them, what are their goals?
Okay, so a professional learning community can be as broad as an entire school and as specific as a grade level or a department. And they meet regularly in order to answer those 5 questions. So they get together and they analyze the data that's being produced in learning objectives, how students are performing on quizzes, how they're performing on their work, and they take a look at, are we getting to where it is, what it is that we want our students to learn. And through our assessment practice, that'll inform that. And then together as a team, as a community, per se, you'll attack the areas of need and the areas of where students need to have additional enrichment opportunities.
Who decides, or how do teachers know, or collectively we know? You mentioned the statement, what we want students to know. And I know that was one of your guiding questions. What do we want students to know, and how do they learn it? But for teachers that are in the classroom now, while we go through this process, what is it that we want to arrive to as far as that overall question? What do we want students to know? What can parents expect?
All right, correct. What we want our students to be able to know and do, some of it's already defined. It's defined in the standards, in the requirements that we receive from our governing body, from our state. And some of that's already known. We want students to be able to earn credit. But there might be additional things that we want them to know and do where there might be some gaps. And so we receive input from others that say, look, maybe it is that we're missing something that's not engaged in the Common Core as deeply or as effectively as we'd like. And one of the things that we point to is post-high school outcomes. When a student is finished, has a diploma, do they have the skills, and did our curriculum, did our instruction feed that? If we have students that aren't accomplishing at the 9th grade level, our 9th grade entrance into high school isn't as effective as it is, we look at the standards, we look at those things that we missed, and determine what it is that we want to do.
Thinking about the planning process, what does that touch into? Is it high-level organizational structure, operations? You've mentioned perhaps a change in the mission statement. What do you see the beginning of this process investigating?
Very good. Yeah, you're looking at your statements and all of those guiding types of documents that may already exist. But what you're doing is you're creating a strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities look at the district. What are the things that we're already doing very well? What are the things that we need to work on? And what opportunities do we have in place for us to be able to address any of those ones that come up as areas of need? So it's a dive into what are our present levels of performance? Where is it that we truly want to be? How do we want to be measured? What's specific? What's general? It's all of it. And I think, it's to the point where, if we have a committee that's operating, say, in the safety environment, and we have lots of things that have been going on with safety, they're going to go through this process as well.
When we talk about the impacts, that we have, and using your professional experience up to this point, what are, if you can, the maybe 1, 2, 3 things that no successful district should overlook?
Well, literacy has to be right up there. Students that struggle with read will struggle in other content areas. So we want to make sure that we're progressing with literacy. Numeracy, math, and that's an area that we know from our data, from the ISAT and from other places where we measure, that is in need of improvement. So that's an area that we know that we'll be specific about. Another might be engaging learning environments. We want our students to engage and be a part of what's going on in the learning process. So if we don't have an engaged environment, that might be something that we need to look at. Some other types of specifics, we're attacking facilities, I think, with a great zeal, and they're needed. Others might be healthy minds. I know we have an initiative with that going on right now through our Connect program, and that continues to grow, I think, every day. We're able to reach more and more kids that might be struggling with a healthy mind type of situation. So those are some very specific ones. Safety is another. Everything that we do in school should have a critical look at it.
What about operationally or even with governance? How do you see this process improving, enhancing, expanding what we currently do?
Okay, so with governance, we took a baby step on December 20th. That was our last regular board meeting, and we introduced strategic planning to our board. And we mentioned that, governance, to take a look at it from a three-pronged approach. Policy governance is one of the terms that boards will use. Are we a policy governance district? So we look at that, measure ourselves against that. Are we do we have statements of performance expectations? And then where does our accountability structure sit for when we're not performing as expected? So those are some governance types things. In terms of operations, you think of transportation, maintenance, foods, technology, all those individual types of things that help provide services for what's going on in the classroom, which is the crux of everything that we do every day. There needs to be a hard look at that. Do we have standard operating procedures that allow us to make good quality decisions and have good practice? So we're going to take a dive at those.
So you've been on the job for what, a whole 7 months now?
Yeah, well, who's counting? Yeah.
Well, I only bring that up to say that understanding that you haven't been here forever, but yet we've been through one semester and you're getting a feel of it. What are some things that coming into the district that we've done well? That's first part of the question. And the second part are, what are some things in your mind? I mean, obviously you're bringing forward the strategic planning so everyone can improve, but are there, is there an area too that you say, you know what, we're not quite where we need to be here, we can do better? So let's start with the positive and then an area of improvement.
Sure. My observations in general the last few months have been we have some very, very good teachers, some people that care about children. We have a great cadre of those that are working individually with our students, and I've been very impressed with a lot of things that I've seen, and want to press out kudos to those people who do that work. We also have some great support staff that help get that work done, and it's very, very important that we recognize that as a system that the classroom and what goes on between a teacher and a student every day is the most important work that occurs. I say it regularly, I don't have a job if there's no student and no teacher, and I think that's something that I want people to understand, that that's what's most important. So I see a lot of good things going on there. Other things, I really appreciate the community's support and work behind the facilities initiative. I know there's been some good work done in the past, but what's going forward is going to be outstanding. And the work that went in behind getting that list prepared, 18 months worth of work, the board vetted it for 4 months, that's all high quality things. I would say that when there is a concern or an issue, at least what I've observed, people are more than willing to take that issue and make a resolution or improvement. And I think that's a great thing. I think we have great opportunities for students to, if they're behind in credits, if they're behind a little bit, that there are structures in place to help pick that up and move them forward quickly. So those are some things I'm pretty impressed with.
So areas that you've identified that we could be doing a little better in. Everyone can improve, so this isn't a criticism as a whole, as the district, but some places that in your 7 months that you've noticed?
Yeah. Well, our data indicates typically some areas of where it is that we need to improve. We want every student to be proficient in reading. We don't want anybody not being able to read proficiently in our system. So, and I think that goes without saying that any sort of measurement that we take, whoever isn't measuring to that level, we want to make sure that we're moving in that direction, that we have the supports and structures necessary for that to occur. Other areas, I think that this whole strategic planning process is needed because those documents that help us know what it is that our shared vision are together is something that we need. So that's an area of need that I think is there. And again, I mentioned the facilities. There's great need there. People need to understand. Burley High School is going to have 900, or they have 900 kids in it today. There are 4 teachers that don't have classrooms. So fast forward 3 years from now, there'll be 1,200 students in that building, and that's the ones that we know now. So that doesn't include the ones that are going to be moving in because industry is offering positions and homes are being filled and that sort of thing. So those are some specific areas that are needed. Yeah.
So we know we're starting this process. You've had conversations with the board, with administrators. Now we're inviting the public to be aware of what's going on. What sorts of things do you have in place short term that goes towards this process, and then what do you see long term? Is this a year's worth of work? Beyond a year? Are you trying to have something ready that you can present to the board in the fall? What's the timeline?
Sure, very good. Okay, so principals should be forming what's called parent advisory councils in their individual buildings. Our departments are forming parent advisory councils as well. So they're inviting parents, stakeholders to come in. I've asked that their first meeting be February 1st or 2nd, somewhere in that first week of February, and then go through what I think is a minimum of about 6 meetings in order to walk through the data, walk through the suggestions, and be completed by May, and then submit the plan to the district by May 9th. So that gives you a February 1st to May 9th time frame.
So if a parent isn't solicited in the sense of, hey, we're looking for parents, but has an interest in participating, can they go visit with their administrator and request to be a part of the committee?
Yes, there will be opportunities to do that. It's hard to run a committee on 100 people, so there'll be some invitations made, but people should also feel free to go to their principal and say, hey, I really want to be a part of that, and this is why.
And at the very least, even if a parent maybe didn't have the time to commit to a committee, or the committee was large enough, as you say, to make it unmanageable, the suggestions, comments, feedback, that can still be submitted and can be recorded.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be means by which to do that. Great question.
So this is a fairly large undertaking. I mean, and it's serious, and it should be. Do we have the capacity to get that done?
We have great people around us. We have great supporters in our community. Absolutely, I believe that we can. Yeah.
So we don't normally initiate superintendents in our district by running large bonds and making major changes. However, with your leadership, I think that we're headed in a direction, as you pointed out, with growth and so forth, that is quite needed. How do you see this community just coming in as an outsider in that sense? I mean, you've been in Idaho before, but coming into the community and understanding all the pieces of the pie, where do you see Cassia in the next 5 years?
Well, we'll grow. We'll grow in a lot of ways. We'll grow as a community in terms of population, in terms of opportunity, but we'll grow in our school district. We'll continue to learn. I've said on a number of occasions that public education is in a better place than it's ever been, and will continue to get better. I believe firmly that students will continue to become more proficient. They'll achieve where it is that they want, as long as we're all working together and moving in the right direction.
Wonderful. Is there anything that you would like to add that maybe we haven't covered? I know that we could probably talk for 2 hours on this subject, and we can return to it and do periodic check-ins, I think, through Facebook. And again, want to point out that if you came in late or didn't get to see all of it live, that we will, besides Facebook, we will have the video posted to the homepage of our website later today. And we would encourage folks to take a look at that. But something that you'd like to kind of, this is the first exposure, that you'd like to summarize and emphasize.
Well, I guess I would conclude with great communities want great schools. And I think we understand that and are working towards that end. The other side of that coin is great schools need great communities, and we need your involvement, we need your participation, and we welcome it. And with that, thank you very much.
Dr. Shank, thank you, and we look forward to checking back in with you on this very important topic.